African youth are an indispensable part of the movement to economically liberate Africa. Follow our channel by liking, subscribing, and making your comments as we cover the African youth involvement in the economic liberation of Africa. Thank you.
Shifting focus to the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Central African nation is reeling from years-long conflict between army and the M23 rebel group.
The Democratic Republic of Congo, a land rich in resources, but for decades plagued by conflict. The M23 rebels continue to fight, leaving millions displaced and countless lives affected. Today we ask, how can peace truly be achieved, and what role do international communities, local populations, and governments play in this struggle?
While efforts are ongoing to secure peace, Congolese youth have categorically rejected any negotiations with the M23 rebels. Hundreds of protesters gathered in the streets of the DRC's eastern city of Butembo on Monday. They expressed their support for the country's army and their anger against the rebels.
Today, we have come to show our love and support for our army, the FARDC, which is the only army we have. The people of Butembo, having endured long years of suffering, with the war imposed by the Rwandans through the M23, as well as the massacres committed by ADF, Allied Democratic Forces, want to make it clear that we are not ready to give up. We stand behind our army to support and encourage it to go and drive these criminals out of the forest where they are hiding.
The young protesters called for stronger military action against rebel groups occupying eastern regions of the country and opposed any peace talks with the M23 rebels.
The youth across Eastern Congo are rising up, demanding change. In the streets of Butembo, hundreds of protesters gathered to support their country's army, rejecting negotiations with the M23 rebel group. But what lies beneath the surface of these protests? How can the international community provide more effective support to the Congolese army in their fight against rebel groups?
Today, we called for a large demonstration to show that we have had enough of the massacres, to show that we have had enough of the security issues. That is why we called for great solidarity, for strong mobilization to try to educate the population, the entire community.
Negotiations have been attempted before, most notably the peace agreement signed in 2012, but the M23 rebels broke this agreement, reigniting violence
community and all the local communities in Eastern DRC to tell them that if we are currently suffering, it is partly because we are also responsible for our suffering, as we do not support our army.
These protests come as the DRC and Rwanda are continuing negotiations in Angolan capital Luanda to try to resolve the conflict in the region. Several rebel groups are operating in the Democratic Republic of Congo. However, the fighting between the army and the M23 rebels has been the most violent. The M23, or the March 23 rebels, is an armed group.
This brings us to a crucial question. What steps can be taken to facilitate meaningful negotiations between DRC and Rwanda to resolve the ongoing conflict? Meanwhile, over 5 million people have been displaced by the violence. The human toll is staggering, but the question remains, how can the local population in Eastern DRC be better informed and mobilized to show solidarity and support for the Congolese army?
Mainly made up of ethnic Tutsis that broke away from the Congolese army over a decade ago. The rebels say they are fighting to safeguard the interests of their ethnic groups in the country. For the past many years, the Congolese army and the M23 have been fighting for control of the eastern city of Goma and the surrounding area.
The youth of the DRC are stepping up, but peace will require more than just protests. it will take international cooperation, trust between governments, and mobilization of the local population.
A peace agreement was also signed in 2012. However, the rebels have broken the agreement and renewed fighting in recent years. Parts of eastern DRC have been plagued by violence. According to the United Nations, over 5 million people have been displaced in the DRC due to the intense fighting. The conflict has increased tensions in the region, with the alleged involvement of the neighboring Rwanda in the conflict. Now, the Democratic Republic of Congo accuses Rwanda, whose president, Paul Kagame, is also an ethnic Tutsi, of providing support to the rebels. The United Nations also blames Kigali for funding, training and equipping the M23 rebels. However, Rwanda has repeatedly denied these allegations. Rwanda has instead said that it has been taking defensive measures and accuses the DRC of fighting alongside a Hutu rebel group that have attacked Tutsis in both countries. Now, the Democratic Republic of Congo accuses Rwanda of creating obstacles in the peace talks. While efforts continue to mediate between the two neighbors and secure peace in the conflict-ridden DRC, it is the people of the DRC who have been facing the brunt of the violence, and many of them are now taking to the streets to voice their growing anger.
The road to peace is long, but hope remains. The people of Congo, backed by their youth and their army, stand united. The world watches, but action is needed, from diplomacy to military support, and most important, from the people of Congolese of the Congo themselves. The conflict in the DRC is not isolated. Rwanda has been accused of supporting the M23 rebels, while Kigali denies these allegations. Regional dynamics complicate the path to peace. As the youth of the Congo continue to lead the change for proving that they are not just the future, they are the present. Their demands for military support, community mobilization, and international action are echoing throughout the country. The fight for Congo's future continues, but with solidarity, strength, and strategy, peace is possible. The Congolese people have endured so much, but their resilience is a testament to their will for peace and progress. The world must not turn its back on Congo. The people stand united for peace, and now is the time for us all to stand with them. If you like this video, please remember to subscribe, like, and share.